prayers have been written by the rabbis, and you say those prayers every day. Repeat them every day. Some of them are wonderful, deep, beautiful spiritual prayers. Prayers, though, in many ways that contrast with New Covenant realities of having already been forgiven and already experienced the redemption of our souls while we await the redemption of our bodies. Having a certain access to God that is being prayed for in the prayer book, something we currently experience in God through Yeshua. But putting that aside, why do you have to pray the prayers? Why do you have to say those words every day? Why do you have to do that? Can't it be that you just commune with God, not just outside of that time, but your whole time? Share with God out of your own heart, pray differently, pray at different times of the day? Why can't that be? I asked one Orthodox rabbi, ultra-Orthodox rabbi, I said, why not just take one day and don't pray any of the prescribed prayers and just talk to God out of your own heart? He said, God forbid I should do that. I asked another rabbi, I said, okay, when the building is erected, you take the scaffolding down, don't you? Why do you need the scaffolding? If you have direct relationship with God, just pray out of your own heart. He said, the prayers help me because I'm not that focused every day to be able to pray deeply spiritual prayers and know what to pray every day. So these words help me. But again, you don't relate to your wife like that. You don't relate to your children like that. You don't relate to your friends like that. If you had that level of relationship with God, would you relate to Him by praying exclusively rote prayers day and night? Could it be that the progression of Rabbinic Judaism is the opposite of what God intended? Despite the beauty of many traditions, despite the fact that it has kept the Jewish people intact, it has also kept them ingrown, rather than being lights to the nations and making known our God, our King. Paul did not have a negative attitude towards the commandments, nor even towards the Torah. The Torah only had a determined task to guard and protect the people under the law until the Messianic era. In its post-Messianic period, the Messianic law holds sway and the time of the guardian is past. This truth of salvation history also appears in the interpretation of the Elijah tradition, with reference to which Professor Joseph Klausner said that 2,000 years of the Torah and 2,000 years of the days of the Messiah means naturally that in the days of the Messiah, the Torah and commandments lose their significance. What's the point of that? Remember the rabbinic tradition we looked at, that the world would exist 6,000 years, 2,000 years of tohu, chaos, formlessness, 2,000 years of Torah, and 2,000 years of the Messiah. What's Klausner's point? That very tradition indicates that the 2,000 years of the Messiah are not the 2,000 years of Torah. Certainly your average traditional Jew reading it would say, no, certainly not. The Torah is exalted above all in the Messianic age. I'm just saying it's a very interesting deduction by a Jewish professor. Let me summarize a few things with Paul. First, he stood firmly against all forms of ethnic and spiritual exclusivity. And some scholars have seen this as the primary issue Paul had with the law. In other words, if you think you are righteous because you have this law and you are part of the nation of Israel, an ethnic exclusivity or an ethnic superiority. John the Immerser preached in Matthew 3 to some of the religious leaders coming out, don't think you can say to yourselves, we have Abraham as our father. We're special. We're different. He said, God can raise up from these stones children of Abraham. I'm sure there are many humble Jewish people that when they think of being chosen by God are humbled by that when they think of the fact that God has singled them out, they're just amazed by His mercy and goodness. And I'm sure there are others, human nature being what it is, who feel superior because chosen, who feel better than. It was interesting when my friend Rabbi Shmuley visited our School of Ministry, Fire. As of this point, August of 2006, he's been with us twice, visiting our school, doing Q&A with our students. when he had his radio program a couple years ago, we did a few hours of radio together and interviewed our students, and I debated him some things. And this time he did a Q&A with our student body, and then we had a debate about homosexuality. Both of us agreeing that according to the scriptures it was sin and a homosexual practice abominable in God's sight. And yet he was saying that evangelical Christians made a mistake by making this the big problem and the big threat to marriage and focus on the wrong things. We should be focusing on family life. We should be focusing on other issues of sexual immorality, etc. And I said, I agree with all of that. That's what we've been preaching and focused on for years. However, there's an activist homosexual agenda knocking at our door that we need to respond to. So we had a little public debate. But of course, when Shmuley is with us, we have to make sure that we get him kosher food. And as a rabbi, he's going to go through the ritual washing of his hands as an Orthodox Jew before he eats. So I found it interesting. I thought that the students would find it an admirable thing of his devotion, that when he said, excuse me, I just have to go wash my hands before I can eat, meaning ritual washing and say a brief prayer and then come back and eat. I thought that that would be taken as positive. But I had one friend of mine, an older gentleman, who said to me, the feeling I get is that he's better than us. He can't eat our food. He can't do things our way. Now that was just a perception from one person. It wasn't judging Shmuley, saying it's just the impression that a Gentile can get of traditional Judaism. Human beings being who they are, it is possible. I'm not accusing Shmuley of this, of course, but it's very possible, very easy. The moment we are separated, the moment we are set apart, the moment we see ourselves as chosen, the moment we see ourselves as different, to think somehow we are better than, superior to. I can't touch your food. No, I can't do this. I can't do that. I know that when a godly Christian woman goes to shake the hand of an ultra-Orthodox rabbi and he pulls his hand back, she does not feel flattered by his purity and holiness. Enough said, you get the point. And I challenge anyone going through this series, do you think you are better than others because you are Jewish? Do you think that you somehow are on a higher spiritual plane and therefore closer to God and therefore a special favorite on any level because you're a Jew? Do you in any way find yourself superior to Gentiles? A religious Jew actually wrote a book on that recently, on the moral and spiritual superiority of Jews to Gentiles, and even how Jews have a higher nature and Gentiles somewhat of an animal nature. It's created a bit of controversy. Other rabbis, of course, have denounced it, but this was a lifetime ultra-Orthodox student saying, no, this is what we were taught. Others, of course, repudiate that. I just asked it as an individual challenge. You say, why don't you preach that to Christians? Well, of course I preach it to Christians. What do you think I spend most of my life doing? Trying to deal with our issues that followers of Jesus have. So first, Paul stood firmly against all forms of ethnic and spiritual exclusivity. Second, Paul clearly emphasized the surpassing greatness of God's new covenant, as expressed in 2 Corinthians 3, 7 through 11. Yes, there was a glorious covenant made at Sinai. How much more glorious is the new covenant made in Yeshua? If what was glorious had a fading glory, and the images Moses coming down from the mountain had to veil his face because the people could not look at his shining face, but then it would fade. Paul sees that as an image